Hi, everyone. Welcome to session 7, the next to last session of Visualization in Practice, MVIS 5702. Tonight, we're going to be recapping the course and where we've been through now with the previous 6 sessions. So in session 1, we talked about foundations of visualization in practice. We introduced the course and Feldman's critique framework. In session 2, we discussed our framework for data reporting and for our brief. So we developed our project briefs and we discussed Duarte's framework for data reporting and analysis. In session 3, we talked about audiences and storyboards, and we worked on defining our audience and best practices for storyboarding, which we needed for week 4 and session 4, where we completed our storyboard / wireframes, and we talked about story arcs and planning for the MVP, the minimum viable product. Then in sessions 5 and 6, we completed our MVP and we planned for and conducted our user testing. We also took a look ahead to the capstone experience. So coming up tonight, we're going to refresh our critique methodology, which we'll be using for our final projects. We'll walk through expectations for the final prototype that's due in week 8. And we'll also look ahead to next week, where we'll do a look back on best practices and case studies in visualization and practice. So first, let's revisit Feldman's critique framework. Remember, this is a 4-stage process where we're first describing the visualization's perceived visual qualities, what catches the eye, what data are presented. Next, we're analyzing. How does it deploy elements of visual design and analytics? What tools and techniques does it use? Then we interpret. What is the overall goal of this visualization? What's the call to action? What is it trying to say? And what is it trying to motivate? What does it want us to do after we review it? And finally, we evaluate. How successful is the visualization at achieving its goals and conveying its message? So now let's walk through the expectations for the final project. We want to communicate data effectively. So what this means is we're looking for a clear presentation of insights from your chosen data set. We're looking for an appropriate level of detail for your target audience. We're looking to balance between simplicity and necessary complexity. We want this to be clear, but we do want it to be aesthetically pleasing as well. And we want there to be a thoughtful use of visual encodings, affordances, bells and whistles, as it were, that match the types of data that you're using. We also want there to be a narrative structure. So we want there to be a cohesive story arc that leads the audience through the information. We want a clear progression of ideas or insights. We want appropriate context and explanatory elements. So we don't want to leave details that are unclear or not apparent. And we want there to be a compelling so what that gives meaning to the whole project. We also want design excellence. We want there to be a thoughtful use of color, typography, and layout. We want a visual hierarchy that guides attention appropriately through the whole visualization. We want there to be consistent and cohesive visual language. So we want fonts to be consistent, use of color to be consistent in a way that leads the audience through the visualization. And we want attention to detail in execution. We also want a user-centered approach. So evidence that we incorporated feedback through the visualization as you're walking through it. We want features and explanations that are appropriate for the target audience. So we want text to be at a suitable comprehension level. We want features to be intuitive and apparent, and navigation and interaction to be intuitive. And we also want it to be accessible in terms of font size and type in terms of the type of language that is used, also the mix of visuals and texts. Remember that not everybody who is looking at these visualizations necessarily in practice will be an English speaker or will have a level of understanding of the topic that you're looking at. So we want this to be accessible in every way. We also want to see some element of technical proficiency in your final project. So appropriate tool or application selection for your visualization goals. This isn't a chance to do everything in your toolbox. It's a chance to choose the best tools in your toolbox for that particular application. We like to see a clean implementation of those tools without distracting technical issues. Remember, this is a working prototype, so sometimes things won't work exactly as you intend, but we want it to look artful and finished. So again, clean implementation without distracting technical issues. Effective use of interactivity, if applicable, and data preparation and analytics that support your narrative, that show that you've worked the data. In your final presentation, please include the following: introduce your project and your goals, explain your audience and your needs, demonstrate your visualization, discuss key design decisions, and share what you learned through the process. So focus on our iteration from the brief to the wireframe to the MVP and to the final project. Please record a video and post it to Canvas, and also post your final deliverable to the assignment page on Canvas. The videos, normally the sweet spot in terms of length is about, I'd say, between 5 and 10 minutes. Generally, the real sweet spot is about 8 to 10 minutes. You want to give yourself enough time to walk through all of these details that I've specified here, but there's no need to drag it out. And of course, you will have the opportunity to offer feedback and critique as well. Our week 7 readings, we have a couple from Kirk and Duarte, and then some other links on Canvas as well. These are pretty quick readings, especially given that the final projects are coming up. So to wrap up, this week we revisited Feldman's critique framework, and we also set expectations for the final prototype and presentations. So I hope your projects are going well. Again, don't forget about optional office hours on Fridays between noon and 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and don't hesitate to reach out with any questions. Thanks very much.